Good morning, Home and Cancer Center. Welcome to Cooking for Cancer and Chronic Disease. I'm Danielle Petrina, the project manager for the Wellness and Integrative Oncology program. And this is Angela Zaccanini, our registered dietitian who focuses on lifestyle nutrition. And today we are bringing to you a caramelized onion frittata.
Yes.
Yum. We already started cooking up in here.
Yeah.
So, Ange, go ahead, kick us off. What we doing?
Okay.
What we doing?
So I feel like this recipe could be a little time consuming simply because of the caramelized onions,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize it does take some time to cook down the onions. So what you want to do ahead of time before everything is get your skillet ready to go, add 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of oil, heat the skillet up, add your chopped and sliced onions. We used a whole yellow onion, and you're just going to heat it up in the skillet. And according to the Modern Proper, where we got this recipe, it takes about 45 to 60 minutes to really cook down and caramelize your onions. And in that time frame, you know, I feel like it didn't take us that long.
I'm showing them the onions right now.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think it took us that long.
So they're like browned and crisp, but they're still very soft.
Yeah. But they're
not burnt.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So that's the key. And then there is an optional ingredient. So 1 teaspoon of light brown sugar to add to your caramelized onions. So you can do that if you want to or not, but we omitted that. So while that was cooking down, I had Danielle chop and cut up kale, fresh kale this time, because we got the bagged kale for that last recipe, and there was just so many stems.
It was chopped, and it was a ton of stems in
Yeah.
there. So we got fresh, and we just took it right off the stem,
Yep.
chopped it up a bit, much better.
And guess what? It was cheaper. It was cheaper than the bagged kale.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, and to be honest, that actually I think took less time because we weren't pulling out the stems from the bag. So
There are, I can't remember where I've gotten it, but there are bags that are just like, they say
stem
like no
free?
stems.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Stem free.
stem free.
Do you want me to start?
Fat free,
this?
stem free.
Fat-free,
Yeah,
stem-free.
so heat the skillet, a little bit of olive oil. We're gonna cook down the kale. So the main ingredients for this recipe are gonna be your caramelized onions and the kale. And then of course, because it's a frittata, we have our eggs here in this big bowl.
Am I salt and peppering this, I assume?
Sure.
Okay, right.
It doesn't say, but you know, we need that.
Yes.
So 8 eggs for this frittata. Now, going back to the salt real quick, like we are salt fanatics, and hopefully it doesn't bite us in the butt one day where we have to restrict our sodium.
Yeah.
But salt and pepper, you know, like salt gives food a ton of flavor, but there's other ways around it.
Yeah.
You know, you can definitely use fresh herbs. You can use Mrs. Dash, like a no added salt type of.
I mean, also the onions are going to give you a lot of flavor with this.
And we're using feta.
Yeah, so it's like that salty kind
Yeah,
of.
feta. And then we're actually going to be using fresh chives as well, so
Oh.
that gives a ton of flavor as well.
Ooh, chives
So
I love.
consider that whenever you're making things. If you do have to restrict your sodium intake, don't feel obligated to add as much salt as we do. That's just our problem.
Yeah.
Our own problem.
There's many of them, but that's just one for
That's
today
one.
that we're going to talk about.
Okay, so Dee's gonna cook down the kale. As she does that, I'm gonna start working on the egg mixture. So what you're gonna wanna do is add your 8 eggs to a large bowl. You are gonna wanna use a little bit of heavy cream. Calls for 1/3 cup. So I'm gonna add that straight to the eggs.
I always recommend cooking down kale, right? Like it's
For
kind
sure.
of like, bleh,
Yeah,
it's better.
definitely. And then some salt and pepper.
We got that on deck.
And I'm just gonna add all of these.
Yeah, I think so. Chives are so good.
It calls for 1/4 cup.
And
So
can you make a frittata without egg yolk?
yeah,
Really?
I would assume that maybe a half and half would be optional. So for example, like 4 whole eggs, 4 egg whites. Like I think you could probably get the same consistency as you would with the full 8 eggs, right?
Yeah, and you can just see Ange like, I zoomed in on this real quick. Ange is just chopping easily. This isn't like a big deal.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Go back and check out our video from Chef Kevin and our knife skills.
Oh yeah.
I still go back sometimes and watch it because I'm like, I learned so much that day.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I need a refresher every now and then
For sure.
because you get stuck so in your ways when you're cutting and just in the kitchen, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, I noticed we were a little dark. We didn't have our island lights on here. Now we're bright. That's gonna look great.
That looks awesome.
And will you move that heavy creamer out of the way real
Yes.
quick? Yeah, look at that. Beautiful.
And then 6 ounces of feta cheese. So it says divided. We're going to use about half of it in this egg mixture.
I forgot
I
about
used
the kale.
more than half.
I'm like, oh, I better go cook the kale.
Okay, and then you're just going to mix all this together.
Camera's on it, so.
Just whisk it together like you would any scrambled eggs.
I'm also, like, are you a fan of feta?
I am. You
Feta's-
aren't.
I like it. I just don't like, first of all, I like when it's really fine and not like clumpy.
Okay. Yeah.
And
So
then,
do you prefer like a block over the crumbled?
Yeah, yeah, I'll even like dice up the crumble because like sometimes it just comes out too much. I like the taste of it, but just not like big chunks of it.
Okay.
I'd put a goat cheese in there
Yeah, that would be awesome.
because goat cheese is a little less.
So good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the nutrition facts for this. So we actually don't have a full nutrition facts from this particular website. So like I mentioned, this is the Modern Proper. It's a blog. We've used their blog before. And their theme kind of is like simple recipes that you can use every day, which I would
Yeah.
consider this a pretty simple recipe. And I like this because this could be a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner.
You put a nice salad with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like this too because frittatas or any sort of like quiche or egg dish, you can refrigerate and eat, you know, the next couple days. It's definitely something that's dense enough that you can eat at the moment, but then just reheat.
Yep.
You know, I think storing it, even to, you know, warm it up and take it on the go.
Yeah.
Like it's not something you need to eat with like a fork and knife, you know? If
No,
it's
you
a,
could literally. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
It's almost like cheesecakey.
Kind of like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's like
Like-
it's pretty dense, but it's also still soft enough
Right.
that.
So let's talk
Like
about
a
that.
good mouth
Soft,
feel.
or like,
Yeah.
yeah, for patients experiencing any sort of mouth sores, hard
That's a
time
great-
chewing, swallowing.
Yep.
This is a great recipe.
This is an awesome recipe for any sort of difficulty chewing, swallowing, mouth pain, like she mentioned. The thing is, it's also not that calorically dense though. So like one serving of this, it makes 8 servings, is 228 calories.
Wow.
So not bad at all.
Sign me up for 2.
And I would like to know the protein content in this
Yeah.
because there is cheese, there is eggs, but of course, you know, unfortunately, we too don't have a nutrient analysis program to actually calculate these needs. But if
I
I
add
had to
these?
guess, yeah, if I had to guess, I would say at least 12 to 15
I was
grams.
going to say about 10. So that's my very non.
But then again, one serving, I don't know. I think it's
sometimes
tough
though,
to
I
gauge.
kind of like when we don't have the calorie count on things because you can get so zoned in,
You
right?
really
Like
can.
you should just know that like this is like the ingredients in here. They're good ingredients.
Yep.
This is going to taste good, lovely.
I really like that point. It's like you shouldn't get so hung up on the calories for certain things. Depending on your goals, though, too. Like if it is weight gain, if it is weight loss, there's certain things you're going to want to look at. But overall, you want balanced meals.
Right.
So I like how you mentioned pairing this with a salad.
Right.
Or, excuse me, some roasted vegetables. Or even adding more vegetables to this frittata.
Right.
So I was thinking onions or mushroom.
Right.
Mushroom, big time. I think bell peppers would be a good addition to
Yeah.
this, like red bell peppers.
We were just telling my daughter today she loves bell peppers. Just to eat them.
Wow. Impressed.
So my husband was like, "You can also add these to your eggs," and she was like, "Disgusting."
So you
Like-
see, like,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
so
like,
she's good with raw, but once they're cooked,
which
no
is
thank
funny.
you.
Like
Yeah.
you know, and also put into something. I'm like, okay.
I mean, that's interesting. I think it's a good concept though because it's true. Some people prefer things raw. Some people
Right.
prefer things cooked.
Right,
And I
right.
know that's a big issue with vegetables. Like a lot of people prefer them cooked over raw.
Yeah.
You know, so it really depends on what you want. Okay, so you are going to want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. I didn't mention that at the beginning. So just keep that in mind for when you're doing this at home. So If you have a 10-inch skillet that is also oven safe, I would highly recommend utilizing that rather than what we have, which is a 9 1/4 baking dish, like a pie dish here, because it's going to be a lot to fill. You know what I mean? Like, this seems like a ton.
Yeah.
But okay, so
Am I adding this into that?
so what they actually did recommend here is to add the caramelized onions while still over medium heat, add the egg mixture to that.
Okay.
Now, but this is what we would take into the oven. But because we're not,
Wait, can you do this?
I don't know if we can put this in the oven.
What is it? Oh, I thought it was a cast iron.
So because it's induction, I don't know what any of that means.
That looks like oven, but let's not try.
I know.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna dump it into that.
So I would add it to here, and then I'll pour it over top.
You're the boss.
Just a little bit, because we're not going to be able to use all of it, I don't think. That good?
Yeah, I was just trying to. Oh,
Make it even.
yeah. Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
And then I'm going to pour the egg mixture right over this. We actually might get it all in
I
there.
was like, you might be able to even put some more of the kale.
I could see your concern with the feta. It is pretty thick.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
but that's just my issue. That doesn't have to be everybody's issue. Do you want to add the rest of this?
Why not?
Okay,
Just pour it right on top.
like a garnish.
Yep. It looks good.
Does look good. The chives, I forget like how wonderful fresh chives are. They just smell so good.
I don't know, because those caramelized onions.
I know, right? I mean, onions, they're a
They might
staple.
make it.
Okay, manja.
Do you have it on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to add this to our 400-degree oven at about 10 minutes. And you're going to want to put a fork or maybe a toothpick through to just make sure that everything's cooked inside.
How long does it have to cook? I'm sorry.
10 minutes.
Oh, that's
yeah,
it.
not
Okay.
bad at all. So, a lot of people ask me about food safety. So, when it comes to eggs, you want to make sure that they're well cooked.
Oh, of course.
And not having, like, depending on what you're dealing with, if you have a low white blood cell count, if you're at risk for infection, everything should be cooked to well done.
Right.
And making sure there's not a runny center. And that's especially something with a frittata that you want to keep an eye on, because it's cooking in the oven. You want to make sure that the center is well done as well. So just consider that whenever you're preparing your meal. Okay, so we're going to cook this down for 10 minutes, and then you're going to just want to slice it almost like a pie. There's no crust. The mouthfeel is very soft, so going back again and mentioning that chewing, swallowing, great option. I think this is a good meal option for any time of day, and I think the whole family might enjoy this.
Yeah.
I don't know, though.
I feel like the salad I would pair with this would be a very, like, I would probably get like a butter lettuce,
Okay,
olive oil, a little bit of lemon, salt, pepper, and some Parmesan cheese.
sounds great.
And I would keep it very like light.
Yeah. So recently I went to Mediterra,
Oh yeah.
and
The one in Mount Lebanon?
I went to the one in Swickley.
Okay.
And they had it was a mushroom and onion quiche. So similar to this, but it was this big, first off. And it was paired with mixed greens.
Yeah.
It was literally olive oil and salt. I feel like
Yes.
it was the most simple.
And delicious. What
Yeah.
were the greens?
It was just like a mix. It was like arugula,
love
spinach. It
And I
was
feel
just
like
so.
if you like kind of chop that up a bit too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like with the mixed greens, it's like a little like I don't know.
a little bitter,
It's a little
too.
bitter, yeah.
So it really depends, but I was just so impressed with how simple it was,
Yeah.
but so satisfying, and I feel like this type of meal is that.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
And it's comforting in a way, like,
Now quiche has the crust, right?
Right.
Okay.
right, which, I mean, that's awesome.
That's amazing. I'm here for the
I mean,
crust.
definitely the crust.
Yeah.
And I feel like once you get the caramelized onions down, this doesn't take long to prepare or throw together. So again, that's something you can make ahead of time, have for the like at least a few days of the week.
So like, you know, fall always makes me feel like I need to get back into like my food prepping.
Like meal prep, yep.
You know, and so like on Sundays, like I'm starting to do that a bit more. I think that you could like, honestly, meal prep this on a Sunday. You could just like make this, have it ready to go. You come home, slice it up however you want, add your salad, done.
Yep.
You know?
I love the idea of frittata and quiche, though, the fact that you can utilize anything. So whatever, you know, vegetables that may be going bad, or if you have extra kale left over from a different recipe and you want to throw it in. Like, that's what I love about eggs and egg dishes, that you can literally add any sort of ingredient.
I always thought, too, when I was younger, it was so cool to have breakfast for dinner. Like, did your mom do that?
Oh,
like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think now as a mom, I'm like, you just didn't feel like cooking.
Well, maybe you can pair your frittata with a pancake.
There you go. I definitely could. I'm here for the pancakes.
You know?
Actually, though, that's a lot to cook breakfast for dinner. Like, it's not something
it
you
actually
could cook
is.
ahead. Mom, I'm sorry.
No, yeah,
you know,
like it actually is.
It's a lot to like prepare before.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Anything else we need to talk about? Anything else with other? Obviously, our show is called Cooking for Cancer and Chronic Disease.
Right.
Anything with heart, diabetes.
So
go ahead, Ann.
it's funny you mentioned that, because we obviously talked about the sodium earlier,
Right.
which
That's
is
hard.
a big, I feel like is a very common concern for a lot of people, or those who just want to lose weight and maybe lose a little bit of water weight, because we kind of hold on to things if we consume a lot of sodium. Like, you know, if you have a meal that's full of sodium for dinner, you wake up, your hands are swollen.
Yep.
You know, you
You're
feel just a
thirsty.
little,
Oh.
you're super thirsty, you just feel a little bloated. So it is good to be mindful of your sodium intake. And I always say, if you're looking at the food label, anything that's over 500 milligrams of sodium per serving is considered high.
Yeah.
And that it probably doesn't fit within that 2,500 or less milligrams of sodium per day. So think about that whenever you're taking a look at the food label. But also cholesterol. So eggs, the yolk is super high in cholesterol, and I liked that you asked about, you know, can we use egg whites instead of eggs? And absolutely. And I think that's a big concern for a lot of people. I actually had a person tell me that they were following a keto diet.
Okay.
And I'm not bashing the keto diet.
No, I just think diets in general are hard. So
Diets in general are hard and usually not sustainable. But she told me she was on the keto diet, and all of a sudden her cholesterol levels went through the roof.
I'm sure.
But she told me part of this diet and part of it was like a work thing. Like, everybody at work was following the keto diet. They were doing like a weight race kind of thing. They were consuming 6 eggs a day.
Okay, I grew up on an egg farm. I love eggs. That is a lot.
That's a lot of eggs
but
per
even
day.
if you would take this, because I also feel like, okay, if you have high cholesterol, like again, everything in balance, right? So like, this is 8 eggs, and if you do 1 serving, it's 1 egg.
Correct.
So like, this is still something that like you're only getting 1 of those eggs.
That's
if you
a great point.
Or, you know, you added maybe 4 of the yolk and more
do
egg
half and
whites.
half.
Do half and half. You know, there's certainly like more egg whites that you can do than not. Because in respect to my grandfather being a chicken farmer, you know, it's not all bad for you.
Right. No,
So-
definitely not. And eggs are very nutrient dense. They're high in protein. And I think that cholesterol and eggs sometimes get a bad rap, you know?
Right.
But if you're consuming 6 eggs a day, we recommend 6 eggs a week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So think about that. You know, everything in excess can be bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
So, for example,
That's everything in life.
yeah, like if you eat a giant bag of almonds or 14 avocados,
Right.
like they're good for you, but you're also getting a ton of calories. You're
Right.
getting a lot of fat, and they are healthy fats, but still that calories can add up. And then, you know, so even the good things need portion control.
Yeah. Preach.
And that's kind of what the point of that is.
Lifestyle nutrition.
Right.
This is like this is the definition of
realistic.
it. It's meant to be incorporated into your lifestyle.
Correct.
Because like you said, Ange, diets are hard to follow. They're not sustainable.
Yeah.
And they can serve its purpose for a period of time. But I don't, it's not your lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want to live your life to a point where you're satisfied, you're not depriving yourself. Because I think when people follow something strict or extreme for even a short amount of time, they get this like feeling or urge where they're like, I want to eat everything.
Right.
And because I couldn't have that for so long, I want it even more.
Right.
And that's where you get in trouble, where you kind of give yourself this all or nothing approach. You almost have to give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
And say, okay, you know, I ate really well today. I am going to have a little bit of dessert.
Right.
Or, you know, I am going to treat myself to a hamburger this week
Yeah.
because, you know, I did really, and not that you have to reward yourself with
No.
everything, and especially with food.
But food is so wrapped into our lives
It's
too. You know, I
huge.
mean, I had a baby while I was pregnant. Like, you know, like I certainly got the cheeseburger
Yeah.
and a side of fries.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, guess what? I can't have a drink with this, so I'm gonna get my side of fries and
There's the
enjoy
balance.
myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think it's even like not that pregnancy is a chronic disease, but like there's also perks to that too. But it's also not allowing yourself, well, like I'm pregnant and I can just like eat the whole bag of chocolate.
Right, you
covered
still have to be
pretzels.
mindful.
Yes.
And I think, you know, a lot of patients want to learn about weight loss, right? Because chronic disease is linked.
To obesity.
Correct.
Yes.
So obesity can increase that rate of chronic disease and infection. So people want to be at a healthy weight, even past the point where they do end up with a chronic disease. Now they want to make some changes to get to a healthy weight so that they prevent another recurrence of cancer, or maybe help with their diabetes, or, you know, help with their heart disease. Some things aren't reversible,
Right.
but they can be treatable through diet,
Right.
and activity and lifestyle.
Right.
So if we can manage that, that's a good place to be. It's
And, like,
something you're in control
Right.
of.
And you're consuming it. So if you putting good things in your body, you're gonna feel good, right?
Yes.
It's gonna naturally do these things. Like this is like when we have like lunches that I bring in and they're like so carb heavy, and then I'm like,
Today for me.
I know I was so jealous of your lunch though. Oh my gosh. I mean, everybody was like just around the island, like, oh, we want Angela's lunch. And then Ange was really tired. And then we were all like,
I yawned probably 50 times before we started this. Seriously.
It happens.
But, you know, like I had noodles, rice, chicken, vegetables.
Oh,
that was all in that. But the amount of rice and pasta. So
know.
think about this. Like a balanced plate, majority of your plate should be vegetables.
Right.
So majority of my plate today was carbs.
Yeah.
Which give me like a quick boost of energy.
And then
But
come
then made me
crashing down.
crash. So you want majority of your plate to be vegetables. The smallest of the portion of your plate should be carbs. So those noodles and rice should have been really small.
I
And
know.
then a moderate size of protein. That's a balanced plate. That's what's going to make you feel better. That's what's going to give the energy,
Right.
you know, to get you through the day and get you to the next meal without having to graze. That's another thing. When people don't eat enough.
Oh my gosh, I hate the grazing effect. It drives me nuts because I'm like a picker. Like,
Right.
It's just like, oh my.
So if you're not satisfied, or
Right.
if you didn't eat a balanced meal,
Right.
you tend to then get hungry within an hour or two, and then you're nibbling and picking on anything until you can prepare dinner or until you get dinner. So it's like, what's the best approach here?
Right.
And, you know, a lot of people don't like the traditional 3 meals a day, or don't have time for the traditional 3 meals a day. But what does that require? Prep and planning.
Prep.
Cycling way back
I
to the prep and
know.
planning.
I know. I mean, we've been really, well, we're also like, I mean, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but the price of things have gone up lately.
Hey,
So
I haven't.
I'm not sure, not at all. But, you know, just what it costs to like go to a restaurant nowadays, it just feels like even things that were like, oh, this isn't that bad, it's starting to really creep up. But now grocery bills are starting to creep up too.
Yeah.
So we plan a lot ahead of time, just to try to have like meals that are done, balanced. And that Sunday is so important.
It is. When you have downtime, or when you're feeling good.
Yeah.
You know, take advantage of that high energy, and when you're
Oh.
feeling up for it.
Ange, that looks beautiful.
This probably needs to be cooked a little bit longer, but I just want to give you guys a beautiful
Oh,
presentation.
wow. It definitely does need. I saw when you set it down.
Yeah,
it like
the
stuck.
jiggling. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what you want to look for. Make sure that that inside, or that middle part, isn't, see that? Jiggling inside. Okay?
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So I just want to remind you guys of a couple things. We have an email list. This is Angela's email at the bottom. She has a long Italian name. But that Ange sends out an email every week just letting you know this is the recipe we're cooking. Here's the link to our website, our YouTube page that will show you our digital library. We have switched to a digital library, so we record these classes in advance. But then just a real quick reminder, the last Wednesday of every month, we're going to host a live Q&A. So whether you have cancer, diabetes, heart disease, you're pregnant, please join us, ask questions, and then you'll just put those questions in the chat. I'll be moderating that for Angela to answer your questions. Then we will be uploading those to our digital library.
Yes.
So you'll get a chance to go back and see that. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
See you next time.